talk about the Cleveland Browns. This video will cover the Deshaun Watson trade and everything that has led up to this moment with the 2025 NFL Draft and free agency recap. But we have to start off with the Deshaun Watson trade. When we go back a few years ago, the Cleveland Browns were desperate to bring in a franchise quarterback. Baker Mayfield had an up and down career with the Browns at the time. Deshaun Watson was available. They wanted to go out there and bring in a true franchise quarterback. They have been looking for that position to be filled for many decades now. You did select Baker Mayfield with the first overall pick, but look at all the bad coaches he had to go through. Hugh Jackson was a terrible head coach. His second season, he had Freddie Kitchens be his head coach. They moved off of him. They bring in Kevin Stefanski. They go to the NFL playoffs, and they won a playoff game over their division rival, the Steelers. But in that last season, Baker Mayfield was a turnover machine. He was dealing with a torn labrum in his shoulder and a hip injury. He was not the same quarterback. So they shipped him off to the Carolina Panthers. They bring in Deshaun Watson for numerous first-round picks. And looking back at it, it's one of the worst trades, if not the worst trade in NFL history. Not only did they trade multiple first-round picks to go get Deshaun Watson, they gave him the most guaranteed money at the time for a quarterback before he even put a Cleveland Browns jersey on. Deshaun Watson was dealing with major allegations at the time, but the Cleveland Browns, they didn't give a damn. As a matter of fact, the ownership didn't care. I can look at Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski. They may have not wanted any part of this, and we've seen this over the last few years, and we'll talk about the biggest elephant in the room at the midway point in this video with Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski. And Haslam has come out and he said that he takes 100% of the blame for this trade. Deshaun Watson has only played 19 games in 3 seasons out of 54 games qualified for. 12 game suspension, and he's been dealing with major injuries. He tore his shoulder up one season with the Cleveland Browns. That was a year after he was suspended for 12 games, and he was starting to gain momentum against the Baltimore Ravens. He comes back, tears his Achilles. Not only did he tear it once in the regular season, he tore it again when they were checking on him towards the end of the season. They're saying, okay, what's going on with your medicals? Let's just check you out. So Deshaun Watson, 2 torn Achilles, a shoulder injury, and a torn ACL when he was a rookie quarterback with the Houston Texans. And those allegations. Overall, he has been a terrible quarterback with the Browns. But yet the Browns have still found some success. When Deshaun Watson missed the rest of the season with that shoulder injury, they called in Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco was able to come off his couch and help the Cleveland Browns have a positive record. They went to the NFL playoffs. And they did fizzle out against the Houston Texans, but that showed how much preparation Kevin Stefanski had with this roster at the time. Not only did his starting quarterback go down, his 2 starting tackles were out. His starting safety, Grant Delpit, he was out as well. And his starting running back, Nick Chubb, who has been a superstar for the Browns for his entire career until he's dealing with those major injuries. He made the NFL playoffs with a depleted team. Shout out to Kevin Stefanski, and he deserved to be Coach of the Year. Joe Flacco would go on to sign with the Indianapolis Colts. They'll try to run him back with Deshaun Watson, but it'll be too late. Deshaun Watson's just terrible. Then you had Jameis Winston come in for a couple of games. He looked fine. He had a great game against the Steelers, Thursday Night Football. But you know you're getting with Jameis Winston, a bunch of interceptions. He was a turnover machine. And it brings us all over to the NFL draft and the free agency period. They bring back Joe Flacco. Now I'm going to say this. Joe Flacco is obviously not going to be a franchise quarterback with the Cleveland Browns, but he does fit the team very nicely. He fits the system. Last year with the Indianapolis Colts, 12 passing touchdowns to 7 interceptions. This is a friendly offense for a veteran quarterback that knows his spots in the NFL, and he can release the ball as soon as he hits the 5-step drop. That is what Joe Flacco still has. That poise, that anticipation, and a big arm. He has the best arm out of any quarterback right now on this roster, even if Deshaun Watson would still be able to play. So you bring back Joe Flacco. That's a great move. In the first round, you have the 2nd overall pick. Many analysts are saying, hey, go get Travis Hunter. He's a generational talent. He can play cornerback. He can play wide receiver. 2 weeks leading into the NFL draft, the Cleveland Browns got a phone call from the Jacksonville Jaguars. They were working out a trade for the Jacksonville Jaguars to trade up to get the 2nd overall pick so they could get Travis Hunter, and the Cleveland Browns could accumulate more picks moving forward. On draft night, they made a trade with the Jacksonville Jaguars. They got a 1st-round pick in next year's draft class. That's a major plus. They haven't had a 1st-round pick in a very long time until the 2025 draft due to the Deshaun Watson trade. So now you have 2 first-round picks in next year's draft class to where you could potentially trade up and get a quarterback of your liking. A lot of analysts are saying that next year's quarterback class is going to be better. We'll see. Right now, not too many quarterbacks stand out, in my opinion, unless it's Drew Allard or Arch Manning for Texas. And we'll see what those kids are made of when they play for this upcoming college season. You trade back and you get Mason Graham in the first round. Tremendous defensive player. Mason Graham, big defensive tackle out of Michigan. He was, in my opinion, the best defensive lineman in college last season. Phenomenal. When you look at what the edge rusher was able to do with the New York Giants, who they selected in the first round, he is a blue chip prospect in Abdul Carter, but he's more so of a linebacker / defensive end. As a pure defensive lineman, Mason Graham was amazing all the way through with Michigan. He's a phenomenal player, can stop the run, can eat up double teams, can get to the quarterback. He can be that Aaron Donald type of player. I'm not saying he'll be the next Aaron Donald, but he's playing alongside Myles Garrett. This is a perfect situation for Mason Graham. And he has a very good defensive coordinator in Jim Schwartz. Let's not forget, when we go back a few years ago, Kevin Stefanski had Joe Woods be the defensive coordinator. The defense was terrible. He brings in Jim Schwartz in his first season. With lackluster quarterback play, they had a top defense in the NFL in terms of takeaways, stopping the run, and passing defense. You're adding in a monster to play alongside Mason Graham. You can't just go out there and double team Myles Garrett. And I've seen Myles Garrett against the Steelers, against the Cincinnati Bengals, take over games. And you're going to keep him on this roster. Remember when Myles Garrett said that he wanted to request a trade, he no longer wanted to be a part of the Cleveland Browns? I'm going to lump this into the conversation. They gave him a major contract extension. He's going to be a Browns player for the rest of his career. And I love that for Cleveland, and I love that for the Brown fans. He had 14 sacks last season, 3 forced fumbles. That's the second most sacks in the NFL. And he's a former Defensive Player of the Year. Every single year, he's one of the best defensive players that you can have. So you have Myles Garrett, you have Mason Graham. They should easily be able to go out there and stop the run on a consistent basis. So getting Mason Graham and an extra first-round pick in next year's draft class, that's a master day for Andrew Berry and the rest of the staff in that front office. Shout out to the Cleveland Browns for going out there and doing the right thing. It didn't really make sense to go out there and to select Travis Hunter if you did not have a franchise quarterback to get him the football on a consistent basis. With the 33rd pick, they selected Carson Schwessinger, a very good linebacker out of UCLA. I don't know what the status is with Jeremiah Su'a-Moore. If you listen for his channel for quite some time, I'm a huge fan of JOK. He is a phenomenal linebacker. I will never forget the game that he had against the San Francisco 49ers. When George Kittle was healthy in that matchup, and the same with Christian McCaffrey, he had the game of his life. He is the definition of a do-it-all linebacker. You want him to blitz in certain formations, he can get to the quarterback. You want him to guard tight ends and running backs in space, he can do that for you. You want him to just tackle the biggest running back on the field, he can do that. He can slow them down. He even did that against Derrick Henry. The reason why I said I don't know about the status of Jeremiah Su'a-Moore, he suffered a serious neck injury last season. Oddly enough, against Derrick Henry. He stopped Derrick Henry, but his head snapped back, and it was a scary scene. He's able to walk around. He's still able to work out. But that's different from playing contact football every single week moving forward. Right now, he's questionable for this upcoming season. Hopefully, he will be able to play. You mix in Carson with Jeremiah Su'a-Moore behind Myles Garrett and Mason Graham, you can still have one of the best defenses in the NFL, especially with the players that you have in your secondary. But Carson was a walk-on at UCLA. This is a great story here. He walked on to UCLA, did not have an offer, became a star player straight out the gate. 136 total tackles last season. 4 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 2 interceptions. He reminds me a lot of Jeremiah Su'a-Moore. So if you had 2 of those players on the field at the same time, that's a unique situation. And you have Jordan Hicks, who is a solid veteran linebacker to have around that can get everyone into the right formations. I love this for the Cleveland Browns so far. So there are 2 top picks, Carson and Mason Graham. I love it. They backdoored in the second round with the 36th pick. They selected Jenkins, running back out of Ohio State. Another great move. Remember when I said Nick Chubb went down with a serious knee injury against the Steelers? Then he broke his foot last season. They're not going to bring him back. I don't ever see him playing in the NFL ever again. He was a star player, especially in this system with Kevin Stefanski. He had a lot of mileage on his body coming out of college. That's not his first time suffering a brutal knee injury. He suffered a knee injury in college in Georgia. But you're bringing in Jenkins, Ohio State. You got a close view of him. The Browns are in Ohio. He doesn't have to travel too far. Jenkins last year forced 179 missed tackles. That was the most in his conference. 14 rushing touchdowns, 1,060 rushing yards. He can be the definition of a bell cow running back with the Browns. And this is the interesting part. Jerome Ford, he's a solid running back. He's not going to be a superstar running back in the backfield. But now you have a running back tandem with Jerome Ford, who averaged 5.4 yards a carry last season, 565 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. With Jenkins, that's a very good 1-2 punch. I'm going to also add this in on top. The offensive coordinator position with the Cleveland Browns over the last 2 years has not been in a good spot. Kevin Stefanski is the head coach. Kevin Stefanski has a heavy influence on the offense. Tommy Rees is a brand new offensive coordinator. Hopefully, they do a better job playing complementary football. They threw the football a lot last season, and they rarely ran the football in general with Jameis Winston, and the same with Deshaun Watson. You have to run the football at a high rate with this offensive line and with the talented running backs that you have now. But I trust in Kevin Stefanski, and I really trust in Tommy Rees. Be on lookout for him. He may be a head coach one day in this league. He's a very good offensive mind. But so far with the Cleveland Browns, I'm loving the draft they're having. The 67th pick, you get Harold Fanning Jr., tight end out of Bowling Green. He was never a superstar tight end at Bowling Green until his last season. He had a great last season. 10 receiving touchdowns, 1,555 receiving yards. He became a huge receiving threat. This is one of those players you can slide in if David Njoku goes down for a couple of weeks. And David Njoku is still a top tight end to have in the NFL in terms of receiving. Only had 505 receiving yards last year, 5 receiving touchdowns. A lot of that is bad quarterback play with Deshaun Watson early on, but we saw him get more involved with Jameis Winston. In the past, with Joe Flacco, he would feed him, especially across the middle, up the seams. David Njoku could be a star tight end with the right quarterback, and we've seen this in the past. That's why he selected him in the first round a couple of years back. I really like David Njoku a lot, and I like the fit with Harold Fanning. And Harold Fanning, he's 6'4", 230 pounds. Not a very good run blocker, but is a very good receiving tight end. You can run a 2 tight end set with Jerry Jeudy on the outside. Once again, I love the draft picks with the Cleveland Browns. This is where things get very interesting. With the 94th pick, they selected Dillon Gabriel, quarterback from Oregon. Dillon Gabriel is a scrappy underdog. Everywhere he has been, he's been the underdog. UCF had a solid career. Oklahoma, he really broke into the scene. And then he transferred to Oregon for his last year. At Oregon, 30 passing touchdowns and 6 interceptions. Very good accuracy, very good poise. Most people say that he's undersized. He is a small quarterback. But don't get it mistaken. Dillon Gabriel is tough as nails. He had a lot of good moments with Oregon. They're one of the best teams in college football. Flipping back over to UCF, he had a lot of good plays. The coaching staff just didn't fit him. Goes over to Oklahoma, looked very good. Everywhere he has been, he had to compete for the job. And I do believe there's a lot of upside with Dillon Gabriel. At the worst, he'll just be a very good backup in the NFL. There's this conspiracy right now, because before I talk about Shedeur Sanders, this is going to be part of the conversation. There's this conspiracy that the Cleveland Browns are waiting until next year to select their quarterback of the future. That's why they traded down with the Jacksonville Jaguars to have an extra pick in next year's draft. We'll see about that. But I like the pick of Dillon Gabriel. I think he could come in. Right now, he may be better than Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett was not able to catch on with the Steelers. He went over to the Philadelphia Eagles, had a couple good moments with the Philadelphia Eagles. Hell, he won a Super Bowl with the Philadelphia Eagles as a backup. But he doesn't look like a true star in the NFL. He doesn't have the arm power. He doesn't have the mobility. And his processing is very weird. He had a couple of good moments with the Steelers also, but Kenny Pickett went to a bad quarterback class. And I was a huge fan of Kenny Pickett when he was coming out of Pitt. Terrible coaching with Matt Canada early on. He's a part of this quarterback room. But Dillon Gabriel, I think that he'll beat him out. This is where things take a turn for the worse for some people. For me, it opens up a brand new question with the Cleveland Browns long term. With the 144th pick, they selected Shedeur Sanders, quarterback from Colorado. We're talking about a quarterback that was projected to go in the first round. A top 5 to top 10 pick this year. Yes, it's a weak quarterback class, but there's a lot of reports. Maybe the Giants will take him. Maybe the Raiders will take him. I look at Shedeur Sanders the same way I look at Dillon Gabriel. They put a lot of good things on the film. You can say that Dillon Gabriel is a winner. That's what a lot of people have been saying in my comment section over the last couple of days. Just because a quarterback won in college doesn't mean he was the sole reason why they were winning football games. I want some of you guys to really understand that when you try to bring that argument up for Shedeur Sanders. But when I look at Shedeur Sanders, his last season with Colorado, 74% of his passes were completed. 4,134 passing yards, 37 passing touchdowns to 10 interceptions. Remember early in this video at the beginning when I spoke of Haslam making decisions and that Andrew Berry has done a great job with Kevin Stefanski. Haslam went out there and he made the trade for Deshaun Watson. When I go back and I look at the tape with Shedeur Sanders, I think he's a very good quarterback. He has a lot to work on with his arm. Before I dig into him as a player, and the same with Dillon Gabriel, I'm going to give him his respect because he went to the college football playoffs, and I just think he's a solid quarterback at the college level. It's a clip that's surfacing around with Andrew Berry, Kevin Stefanski. When they made the selection, they did not look happy. They looked like they were being held at gunpoint and they were golf clapping. Usually you'll see the general manager get up, they're excited about the pick. The coach, he's shaking his head saying, yes, we got to steal. I don't know if Haslam walked into the room and he said, you know what, you're going to trade for Shedeur Sanders no matter what. I want my guy. At the end of the day, if the owner steps in and he makes that decision, it's his team. It's only so much you can do. If he did do that, I don't agree with that move. You let your general manager go out there and work. You let your coach go out there and work. If he really wanted Shedeur Sanders that bad, he should be Jerry Jones 2.0. He should go out there and be the owner and the general manager. You're handcuffing your general manager. But as it stands right now, Andrew Berry came out and he said it was great value. He was the best player on the board. In my opinion, he was. Andrew Berry saying all the right things. But it is so interesting and so confusing to why you would take Dillon Gabriel in the third round and then later on take Shedeur Sanders. Not only just take Shedeur Sanders, he was their last draft selection this year. They traded up in front of the Philadelphia Eagles to select him. That's the crazy part. They traded draft picks in this year's draft class to go select Shedeur. I think Shedeur is a better player than Dillon Gabriel coming out of college. What he was able to do at Colorado was very impressive. Travis Hunter had 15 receiving touchdowns. If you want to use the argument that he threw the football to just Travis Hunter, the man had 37 passing touchdowns. He also threw the football to Jimmy Horn and to other wide receivers. He's not a perfect prospect. No one is. He will drift into pressure at times, but he easily played with the worst offensive line in college in back-to-back years with Colorado. He did not have a consistent run game. His accuracy and his timing is there. The processing is also there. It's inconsistent, but it's there. He got better every single season at college, and he never had a top coach. Pat Shurmur was a coach at the NFL level. Goes over to Colorado. He was terrible. He's no longer there. Shedeur Sanders put up very good numbers at Jackson State, and the same with Colorado. I think if you give him the opportunity to be a starting quarterback in one day, he could be a solid starter like a Brock Purdy. And Brock Purdy went to the NFC Championship game with the San Francisco 49ers. He went to a freaking Super Bowl with the 49ers. I don't hate the draft selection of getting 2 quarterbacks. You may disagree with that, and you have every right to. But I know another team that did this many years ago. The Cleveland Browns have done this before, but they did it in the 1980s, I believe. They went back there and they selected 2 quarterbacks. The Washington Commanders / Redskins, they're the Redskins at the time. They selected RG3 in the first round, and they selected Kirk Cousins later on. You give Shedeur Sanders a fair shot, and the same with Dillon Gabriel, and see who could be the backup quarterback. Regardless of how good these guys look in rookie training camp, and there's going to be a lot of eyes on rookie training camp with the reporters, I guarantee you they're going to show up. They're going to be looking at Dillon Gabriel. They're going to be looking at Shedeur Sanders and say, okay, who's the better of the 2? Do not count out Dillon Gabriel if you are a Shedeur Sanders fan. Like I mentioned before, he has competed at the college level with other quarterbacks, and he's beat them out. And don't just place Shedeur Sanders on the back burner because he's Deion Sanders' son. He was able to go out there and have very good production at the college level and in high school. Many people saying that he wasn't that highly recruited. He was a 4-star recruit coming out of high school. Alabama gave him an offer, but he just went to Jackson State. He wanted to be coached by his dad. Nick Saban saw something in him. I look at Dillon Gabriel. He was doing something right for Oregon, a top program. Dan Lanning, a top college coach, to go out there, offer him NIL money, and said, come to my team. So you're getting 2 quarterbacks. There's high upside there. I know it's confusing as hell. You're wasting future draft picks on a quarterback. But if you have a chance to get a projected first-round pick later in the NFL draft, especially in the 5th round, you take him. And I think Shedeur Sanders, in the right opportunity, he could be a very good quarterback in the NFL. He reminds me a lot of Brock Purdy, the same with Tua Tagovailoa. And you may mention all the teams passed on him numerous times. All the teams passed on Brock Purdy as well. That's all I have to say about it. But I love the Cleveland Browns draft. And I look at Kenny Pickett, man, I'm sorry. They're going to cut you. And if Shedeur Sanders doesn't work out in the same with Dillon Gabriel, you're not married to the guys. You can move off of them. It's not that huge of a deal. I see some people ranting and raving over this. It's not that serious. They could easily just cut Shedeur Sanders, cut ties with him, have him as a backup quarterback. You could talk about the fact, well, the media say that Shedeur Sanders shouldn't be a backup quarterback. Then you trade him. If you can't find a trade partner, just cut him. People do it all the time. Don't let the name fool you. If Kevin Stefanski wants to cut him in the same way Andrew Berry, they should have the resources to do so. When I look at the Cleveland Browns' entire roster, and I've said this over the last few years, personally, I feel like they're just a good quarterback away from being in contention in this division. How strong their defense is. Jim Schwartz is a very good defensive coordinator. And we saw this many years back. Like I mentioned before, you made the NFL playoffs with freaking Joe Flacco at the starting quarterback position. Your secondary, Denzel Ward, is a great cornerback. The only problem is this, those damn concussions. I want him to be healthy for the rest of his career. But if he suffers one more than likely, they're going to look at him and say, hey, it may be time to hang him up. But Denzel Ward is a very good cornerback. Greg Newsome, very good in his own right. Martin Emerson Jr., in my opinion, he's the best cover corner that they have in terms of man-on-man coverage and just sticking in the wide receiver's face. And overall, in zone and man coverage, I believe Denzel Ward is better. Grant Delpit, very good safety to have. The Cleveland Browns, they have talent. We'll see who the franchise quarterback will be for the future. If you have a terrible season for this upcoming year, it's okay. Select the quarterback that you want and use that extra first-round pick with the Jaguars that you received in that trade with Mason Graham and move up and get your guy. It's that simple. But I look at the weapons and I look at the coach. Dillon Gabriel could succeed in this system, and the same with Shedeur Sanders. Very good running backs all over the place. You got Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy last season shocked the world. He looked like a true number 1. And you may say his numbers got inflated against the Denver Broncos. You take that Denver Broncos game out, he still had over 1,000 receiving yards. 90 receptions on the year, 1,229 receiving yards, 4 receiving touchdowns, 14 yards a catch. And this was the biggest thing with the Browns. He didn't drop the football that much. He had a couple of drops here and there, but he dropped the football at a high rate with the Denver Broncos. The quarterback play was never the best until Russell Wilson came over. And right when things were getting good, they shipped him out to the Browns. He's a smooth route runner. That's what he's known for. He could be an amazing deep threat across the middle of the field. You have Cedric Tillman. He's a very good wide receiver. You could bring in another wide receiver if you want to, but it should be able to work out with David Njoku and those running backs. The Cleveland Browns, they're just one good quarterback away. And this system with Kevin Stefanski, you could be working with something. Personally, I love this NFL draft class. Even though they got 2 quarterbacks, I know it's confusing. You traded draft capital to go get Shedeur Sanders. I love the pick. But let me know in the comment section below, how do you feel about the Cleveland Browns moving forward? And did they knock it out the park in this NFL draft and in terms of just their entire offseason as a whole with free agency? I'll also add this on before I let you guys go. Any one of these quarterbacks are better than Deshaun Watson. The same with Joe Flacco, Dillon Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders, hell, maybe even Kenny Pickett. Deshaun Watson has been terrible, and it seems like he's a cancer with the team. I don't agree with this, and I hate that the Cleveland Browns fans did this. They're better than this. When he got injured at the game, they were cheering, they were happy. I would never promote that, but that is how much the Browns fans, not all, but some, they hate him. They don't want him on this roster. I wish they could cut him right now and save money. Unfortunately, they can't. But sooner than later, they'll move off Deshaun Watson and brighter days will be ahead. But if you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Most importantly, we want each and every last one of you guys stay safe, stay positive. Thanks for the video, guys. God bless.